Hey everyone, thanks everyone for joining me. We're going to have a little hangout today for the next hour, and if you have any questions about AV, about the cube, or just activism in general, let me know. I'm vegan 2 years. My kids are vegan in the house, but when they go to other kids' house, they have a hard time explaining what veganism is. Do 8-year-olds get a pass for not being full vegan? No, of course not. When you know the reality of what happens to the animals, how could you say my 8-year-old gets a pass for not being vegan? And you can't say full vegan because you're either vegan or you're not. There's no percentage to it. It's not like I'm half vegan or I'm mostly vegan. So first of all, please don't use that language because it's damaging to animal rights to say there are different levels to veganism. You're either vegan or you're not. And as a vegan, you've been vegan yourself for 2 years, and if you know that your kids must be vegan, then don't make an exception for them. So they have a hard time explaining what veganism is. Educate them more, help them get better in their communication so that they can explain it to their friends or their parents better, and also so that they can early on in their life they can learn how to set boundaries with people and stand behind their own beliefs and their own values. So if they decide that they want to be vegan, they're not going to be then making exceptions because they're at a birthday party and there is a cake with animal products in it and they're going to make that exception and they're going to eat it. Teach those values to them, make sure they get it, help them become more active in their day-to-day life, even when they go to school and they're hanging out with their friends, so that they can communicate these things with their friends and they can educate those kids as well instead of making exceptions. How can I stop them from eating something at someone else's house? Again, just they're your kids. You need to teach them discipline. You need to teach them how to have boundaries. First of all, you need to work with your own kids so that they are convinced that they need to be vegan, because you might think kids don't really understand these things, but they do. They're really intelligent, and 8-year-olds are not that young. So have a serious conversation with them and explain to them why they need to be vegan, so that they would never be willing to eat something or use something that comes from an animal, because they know that is wrong and that means that an individual had to suffer or die for that product. So when they're at someone else's house, they will be able to say, no, I don't want to eat that hot dog because an animal had to be tortured and murdered for that. Either give them food to take with them, or talk to the parents of the kids that they're going to hang out with and tell that parent that my kids do not consume any animal products and this is why. So please make sure you have some vegan food for them or vegan snacks for them. If they can't commit to that, make sure you send food with your kids so that they have their own snacks, so that they're not going to be hungry. Because I know with kids it's a bit different, because they're going to look at other kids and they're going to be like, oh, those kids are eating, chocolate and cakes and ice cream and things like that, and I don't have any of that. Don't just give them celeries and apples and carrots and things like that, but prepare snacks for them so that if they're having a sleepover or they're just playing with their friends for a few hours or studying together, you're not going to be there to supervise them. They're going to be prepared. They're going to have enough foods and snacks so that they're not going to make the exception until they get to the point where they will be strong enough in their conviction so that they're not going to make those exceptions and they're not going to become weak in those moments. How do you manage to keep cool with outreach? Some people really say annoying things. When I do outreach, and I recommend you do this as well, regardless of how you're doing your outreach, whether it's online or in person obviously is a bit more difficult because you have to act like quickly because the person's there, and when you're doing it online you have time, you can take a break, you don't have to respond immediately, you can calm down and then go back to it until you learn how to manage your emotions. But regardless, the first thing you need to do is to remove yourself from that whole situation. You're just the messenger, you're just the person who is educating that individual, and the conversation has nothing to do with you. So if people say really annoying things to you, trying to attack you or mock you, that would help you stay calm, because you know that this conversation has nothing to do with you. You're representing the animals in a way, you're speaking on behalf of them. That's why it's got nothing to do with you. And if people are saying annoying things, like plants have feelings and the arguments that are ridiculous and you've heard it a million times and you're like, how can you be so stupid? Give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there's a chance that that person is asking that question genuinely because that's what they think, because they've been conditioned to think that way and they genuinely have those questions. They're not doing it on purpose to piss you off. So maybe that would help you, again, stay calm, respond to that argument or that question calmly and clearly, clarify things for them, help them understand. And then at some point you will know if the person is just taking the piss or if they're serious. So if they are taking the piss, if they are just mocking you or wasting your time, then it's really important to recognize that and just stop the conversation. If you're doing it online, just stop responding. I'm not against blocking. I don't block people, but I think there's a time and a place. If it makes sense for you to block them, restrict them, ban them, whatever it is, do that. Or just simply ignore them. Don't feed into the nonsense. And if it's happening in person, you can just walk away from the conversation. So if that person's just talking shit, they keep throwing arguments at you, they're not even listening to what you're saying, just walk away from them. Just say, all right, bye, walk away. That's basically what I do. I do think that when you just focus on the animals and the message, then you won't be as offended, or the things that they're saying, especially if it's at you, if they're directing things at you, it wouldn't bother you anymore because you're just not there like as an individual. You're not there to represent yourself and defend yourself. When people say things, a lot of times vegans try to defend themselves, or animal rights activists. Like many times I've seen when you're outreaching a non-vegan, they say, but what you're doing is not effective, but what you're doing doesn't change people's minds. And people get really frustrated and angry and they want to defend themselves and explain, and they want to be like, no, actually we do turn a lot of people vegan, and like you want to explain as if you want to explain yourself to them, but you don't need to do that. You just keep doing what you're doing. If you know you're doing the right thing, take yourself out of the equation and stay focused. How to be vegan in a family that does not accept this type of act. This type of act meaning being against violence, unnecessary harm, murder, things like that. Just to be clear, if you're living in a family that is against that is against taking a position against oppression, then what you need to do is you need to figure out what your values are as an individual and then behave based on that. You might be living in a family that is full of racists. Are you going to continue to be a racist as well? Or are you going to at some point realize that that's not good, it's unethical, and you're going to change your position on that and then act accordingly? So same thing when it comes to the animals. If your family is for oppression and violence and cruelty, and at some point you realize that that's unethical and you want to take a stance on it, then you go vegan and you align your values with your behavior. And then all you can do with your family is to educate them and tell them why you've taken this position, and then the rest is up to them. So they may not be ready when you're ready to take action, but what you can do is to continue to educate them until they get it, and be aware that they may never get it, or it might take a very long time, but that doesn't mean that you have to go back on your own values. Your family and their behavior and their values doesn't necessarily need to reflect on you. And regardless of how old you are, if you're old enough to ask this question, that means that you can understand these things, and even as a younger individual, you have the right to decide on this, and your family needs to respect that and appreciate that. What do you think about masculinity and the consumption of animal products? That's really interesting. It's an interesting question. I know why you're asking this, I think, because a lot of people that we outreach say, a lot of men that we outreach, and it doesn't matter, it could be someone in their 60s, it could be a very young guy who's in his 20s, but they all seem to think that in order to be manly and strong and masculine, you need to eat a lot of animal products. They even say, like, I have had this experience so many times, that they say, I can't be vegan, that's not masculine. I don't want to just eat veggies. I need to eat a burger and I need to eat a steak and blah, 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 because I want to be manly and strong. But again, that's another kind of conditioning, I guess, because looking at the ads on TV and again, everything that they have learned at school, etc., they have formed this belief that to be a strong male figure, you have to eat animal products. But the reality is that what they're really consuming is rape, torture, fear, pain, suffering, and murder. So if that stuff makes you manly and strong, I don't know what to say, because it doesn't. It really does make you cowardly and weak to take someone's life just for 5 minutes of pleasure. So these people that pay for others to rape and torture and murder these innocent animals so that they can eat at a restaurant, sit down and eat a steak or order a burger, these people are just weak. Nothing masculine about it. Doesn't make you stronger at all, and it doesn't make you attractive at all. It doesn't matter what sex or gender you are. Veganism is not specific to women or girls. It's funny because I have heard this before and know the mentality. I know many guys that think like that, and maybe even women that think like that. But really what you're doing is you're just avoiding as much as you can torture, cruelty, violence, suffering towards these innocent beings, and that's what veganism is. So regardless of your gender, you should do it. Continuing to support oppression and violence doesn't make you masculine at all. If a food product says may contain eggs or dairy, does that mean it's still vegan? Or should I avoid it? So the reason why some products say it may contain eggs or it may contain dairy or it may contain soy, it may contain nuts, they have to say that because of the regulations, because if someone had an allergic reaction to that product, then they would be able to sue that company if it wasn't written on it. So it doesn't mean that there's definitely going to be eggs or dairy or anything else in that product. It usually means that that specific product that you're looking at was produced in the same facility using the same machines that also produces or processes eggs, dairy, and like I said, this is not specific to animal products. It could be soy and nuts as well. These are the most common ones, and this is just the nutrition thing. It's just an allergy thing, because you could be allergic to soy, you could be allergic to nuts, and you could also be allergic to animal products. So that's why they have to put it on the packaging. But I personally don't avoid that. So I know that that means that yes, there might be a trace amount of, say, cow's milk in there, but it's not guaranteed. And the only way you can avoid that is usually if you only go buy products from fully vegan companies. So in that factory, they don't produce anything that comes from an animal, and that's the only way that you could avoid it, because the machines that they use will never come in close contact with animal products. So if you're asking me, I don't think you should avoid it unless you're deadly allergic to any of those products. It's not unethical to buy them. You said you can only go vegan for ethical reasons, but there's also health and environmental reasons. Yes, so there are health and environmental benefits to eating a plant-based diet. That's the difference. I said plant-based diet, I didn't say veganism, because your health can be affected by eating animal products, but your health, your physical health, cannot be affected and will not be affected by wearing animal products or using other kinds of animal products. And that's the difference between veganism and being plant-based. Because when you go vegan, not only you eat a plant-based diet and you avoid eating everything that comes from an animal, you also don't wear animal products like animal skin. You also don't buy products that are tested on animals. You don't buy beauty products that have animal ingredients in there. You don't go to places like zoos. There's a lot more to veganism than just the diet, and that's why it is only about animal rights. But when you're looking at your health or the environmental impact, then you are specifically looking at the diet, which is a plant-based diet. So that's the difference between veganism and plant-based. Plant-based is just a diet. It's only what you eat, what you put in your body. And yes, by being plant-based, you could be helping your health depending on what you eat, and you could be helping the environment, again, depending on the practices that are involved in that particular diet that you're eating. But you're not necessarily achieving those things, because you could become plant-based and you could be eating junk food. You could be buying all these products that are still harming the environment, not as much as animal agriculture is, but still. And again, within plant-based, there are many ways you could do it. So you could be eating a whole foods plant-based diet, which is the healthiest, and yes, if you're doing that, then you're helping your health. That's the reason why we only focus on the animals, because we talk about veganism, we don't talk about plant-based diets. That's just a diet. That's something that you will discuss with a dietitian. What I do is animal rights activism, and I always focus on the animals. And veganism is just an extension of animal rights. When you get animal rights, you become vegan as a result. And then that veganism includes a plant-based diet, as well as many other things that you do or you don't do, you avoid doing because of animal rights. In terms of romantic relationships, do you think vegans should date vegans only, or it's alright to be with a non-vegan? Really, this comes down to your own values. But for me, if I was single, I would date non-vegans. Maybe I would go on one date, or maybe I would talk with them, but I would keep the relationship at a certain level before committing to that person, unless they were willing to be vegan. So I personally would not be able to be in a relationship with a non-vegan. And the reason for that is because I can't imagine respecting someone that pays for animal cruelty and abuse. I can't imagine being able to be intimate with someone that does that. I think I would be open to going on a date, like I said, or getting to know someone. And if I really like that person, then I would be like, okay, so I would really like to be in a relationship with you, only if you're going vegan. You need to make sure that they're not doing it just for you so that they can have you. They have to be convinced themselves. So what you can do is to educate them and send them information and talk to them, but they have to get to the point where they want to be vegan for the right reasons, not because of you or a relationship. That's my position on that. I wouldn't be able to continue dating someone and give them 6 months or a year or multiple years until they get it. I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm vegan, but when I tell my friends to become vegan, they just laugh and say that's dumb. So you have to understand that just because you decided to wake up and accept the truth doesn't mean that everyone around you is ready as well. So you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to keep these people in your life, or you don't? It could be your friends, it could be classmates, it could be work colleagues, it could be family members. You have got to the point where you have made this decision that you want to be vegan, and you know that that's the right thing to do, but then not everyone is on your level when it comes to that, so they may not be ready. What you can do is, if you choose that you still want to have them in your life, you can continue to educate them, like I was saying before, send them information, show them documentaries, have conversations with them, ask questions, let them think, but that's all you can do. And then beyond that, you are going to have to decide. If people around me were actually mocking me and laughing at me, if they were that illogical and irrational and stupid that they would make fun of this, I don't think that I would keep them in my life. I do have friends in my life right now that are not vegan. The boundaries are very clear with them, and one day I may decide that I don't want to be friends with them anymore, right? I have accepted that these people are not ready to be vegan, and then I have made this decision that I may talk to them sometimes or hang out with them knowing that they're not vegan, but then when they're around me, there are certain boundaries in place. That's what I recommend for you. You have to decide. Just think about it for a while and see if these people add any value to your life, and if you want to keep them. I mean, somebody who's making fun of you for being someone who's against oppression and cruelty, you're gonna have to think about them. and whether they belong in your life or not. It could be a friend that you've had in your life for 20 years. I know that, but them not being ready to be vegan is one thing, but them making fun of you and telling you that you're dumb and you're stupid is another thing. So educate them, but also just have a think about your values and whether you want to keep these people in your life or not. I think the main reason why that happens is because people have guilt. They know you're doing the right thing and they feel guilty, even if you don't point it out, but they feel guilty. I'm sure you've all heard non-vegans say to us, "Oh, you think vegans are so much better than us?" Yes, we are in that regard. Yes, we are. There's nothing wrong with that. We are better in the way that we respect animals' rights. Their right to be free and liberated and to live their life. So that does make us better just in that regard. And the reason why they feel that way, these non-vegans, is because they feel that deep down they have the same values, which is being anti-oppression, but then they haven't aligned those values with their behavior and with their actions. And that's why I guess they get defensive. They might be feeling jealous. They're feeling guilty because you have done that. And for whatever reason, they think they can't do it because they're too weak. But everyone can do it. We know that everyone can make that change in their life. And I think what happens is they try to either mock you, they make fun of you, they may insult you, or they remove you from social media, they don't want to invite you, they don't want to hang out with you. So all of these things are expected, but what happens is you start to maybe attract people that are like yourself because you know that you're doing the right thing. I didn't go vegan to be popular. Did anyone here go vegan to be popular or to be able to date more girls or guys? I don't think so. I always think that it's better to have one friend that gets me and is on my level than to have 50 friends that I can't stand or they just live in a different world when it comes to values. So after some time, I'm sure you'll start to attract like-minded people, but in the meantime, just know that you're doing the right thing. And even if family members and friends start to kind of remove you from their lives, just see that as a good thing and know that you're triggering something inside of them. You're definitely making them think. This has happened to me as well. People that would get into arguments, friends from before I went vegan. And then after I went vegan, they would get into arguments with me on social media. And then what they would do, they would block me and they would never want to talk to me ever again just because I responded to their stupid arguments. So I know that I'm doing it right and I'm making them think. And until they're ready to face the hypocrisy within themselves, nobody can help them. But yeah, there's many things that you could do. Like I said, I still have non-vegan friends, but we have boundaries. Like they won't consume animal products when we're hanging out. We all would be eating a vegan meal, which is nothing. Like anyone around me is willing to do that, of course. Like what is that to them? To them it's just a meal. You can keep those friends in your life if you want, as long as you have boundaries. And I know some vegans are okay with eating with non-vegans while they're eating animal products. So it really comes down to your personal values, but you don't have to remove every non-vegan family or friend from your life. If you want to keep them, I do believe you should have boundaries. But if they're the ones that are being aggressive towards you, they're mocking you, they're bullying you, then those people I believe should be removed. But again, it's your life. How do we know AV's activism really works? What more can we do to achieve animal liberation? I think there is no limit to it. I think you can always do more, right? But there's only 24 hours in a day. And you also want to be healthy, you want to stay sane, and you want to be able to do activism for a long time. You don't want to get burnt out. You don't want to get depressed and anxious to the point where you can't live your life. So although you can always do more, I think there should be a balance, and you should look after yourself and make sure that you prioritize your health, especially your mental health and physical health at the same time. So how do we know AV's activism really works? We know based on the feedback that we get and based on the personal accounts and experiences that we've had. I've been doing this for the last 4 years, and I've had so many interactions with people where at the end of the conversation, I was convinced that that person is taking animal rights seriously. I know many people that went vegan based on the conversation I had with them at a cube, and they have stayed in contact with me. I see them on social media, so I know they are vegan. And we also get messages and comments from the public, people that don't even talk to us at a cube. They just walk past, they just write down the website, and then they go look into it and they go vegan. So there's many ways that we know that this kind of activism is effective and it really works. But also there are people that say, oh, that's it, I'm going vegan. They never go vegan, right? We know that. So again, it's just based on the feedback that we get, based on the experiences that we've had. And if you don't think that this kind of activism works for you, then you need to figure out what form of activism works for you and what is best for you, for your personality, for your talents, and for your strengths. You may be someone that wants to do activism online, you may be someone that wants to physically go and liberate animals. Whatever it is, you need to figure that out for yourself and keep doing that. For me, doing outreach is the best. Just talking to people. I love communicating with people. It could be online, it could be on the streets. And also doing these live streams, I really love doing them because I'm helping others with their communication and with their activism. So this for me is the best. Doing workshops and things like that for me works the best. It's the most effective form of activism for myself. So everyone could be different. You need to figure that out for yourself. And like I said, you can always do more, but make sure you prioritize your health as well and you look after yourself so you don't get burnt out. All right, let's wrap this up. Thank you all so much for joining me for this live stream. Much love and take care, everyone.